right now is OPIS Energy Analysis Global Head, Tom Kloza. Tom, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Nice to
Your
be here.
thoughts on where oil and gas are going. Look at U.S. natural gas futures this morning, extending gains by 10%, Tom, after Russia cut its gas supply throughout the Nord Stream pipeline to Germany. Your reaction?
Yeah, well, my reaction is that this is an energy crisis, not just an oil crisis. And you can really see it in what's happened in natural gas in Europe and electricity in Europe. We had London paying a price to the Belgians last week for electricity that worked out to something like, $16,660 per barrel. We've got natural gas there selling for 6, 7, 8 times our own prices. And they may need some diesel fuel or some other molecules to sort of power up. So it's a crisis, and it's a crisis not just for oil and gasoline, but for diesel, for natural gas, for electricity, and coal.
Yeah, you make a great point. And in fact, in the whole middle of this, we're looking for answers as to why, in the middle of this crisis, has President Biden sent oil from our strategic reserve and sold it to China? I asked Democrat Congressman Ro Khanna about this on Sunday Morning Futures, and he, too, was saying this is wrong. Watch this.
No, it's wrong. I early on said that we shouldn't be exporting our oil or gas. I don't think that was the right decision, and we're still calling on the president not to export it. In fact, one of the reasons to declare a climate emergency is it would actually give him the power to restrict the export of crude oil.
Tom, your thoughts on this climate emergency?
Well, I think that the exporting of crude oil, again, you sell it to multinational companies, and they could take it really to whatever countries they want to, with the exception of people that we've got sanctions upon. So it's not the U.S. directly exporting. Now, I will say this, that right now the jury is out on the sales from the SPR. I would probably argue that we've seen crude oil prices about $10 or $15 lower than we might have seen here in the third quarter because of the SPR sales. But we are at the lowest inventory since, the mid-1980s or so. So as we continue to sell our reserves, it may have some more consequences. But right now, you could probably say that it did peel back some of the enthusiasm for oil. I mean, we hit a high for everything this year: gasoline, diesel, heating oil. We didn't hit a high for crude, and that's probably because of SPR sales.
Well, look at Turkey busting sanctions openly. Erdogan says Turkey will increase oil and gas imports from Iran. During a recent visit to Iran, Tehran and Ankara agreeing to increase the bilateral trade exchange to $30 billion. You've got adversaries of America on the march with this crisis in energy, Tom.
Well, you have Turkey is not exactly a choir boy in the NATO alliance. And you do have a kind of change in flows. We haven't really seen that much Russian oil impeded or suppressed. But what we've seen is instead of sending it to Europe and sending, some of their molecules to North America, they've been sending it to China, India, Turkey, and other places. So we'll see. The sanctions probably need to get a little tougher.
Yeah. Dagan McDowell, jump in.
One thing about Ro Khanna's all over the place with his ideas about energy policy. Less than a year ago, it was in October of last year, he was praising some oil companies at a hearing for cutting their production and then lambasting other oil CEOs for not doing more to fight climate change. Here's a quote from Ro Khanna. It's not a gotcha question. Do you commit to do anything to matching your European counterparts to try and bring down the actual demand of oil production? This was to Mike Wirth, the Chevron CEO. And a lot of these red states, Tom, are doing more to juice gasoline prices by, say, waiving the gas tax. Florida's doing that. In addition to sending stimulus checks to some low-income families, they're going to waive the gas tax for the month of October. That juices demand when supplies are still tight.
Yeah, I think that is timed for the election for Governor DeSantis, quite frankly. And I suppose if I had the power to suspend taxes, it would be appropriate to do them in a state where somebody faces re-election. I don't think it's a good policy necessarily, and I do think that after the next 60 days or so, after we get through hurricane season, I think gasoline prices will moderate and continue to moderate. But boy, I cannot be a motivational speaker on crude, diesel, heating oil, or natural gas. I think, unfortunately, we're looking at a global energy crisis there.
Wow. Yeah, really. All right, Tom, we'll keep watching that. Thanks very much for being here this morning, Tom. Good to see you.
Nice to be here.